here and we can start. Thank you very much.
Okay.
About 5 seconds.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. My mother's sister, Hilda, they came from Neustadt, and I don't know exactly where that is. I'd have to look that up. And the one in New York, I'm not quite sure. I don't remember exactly where they come from, but they were here. They were the people, and the one in New York. We went. That's the one that I stayed with. You know, when she had the epilepsy, and they lived in a terrible place in New York, and they had the store. They had this grocery store, and but they sold it after a while. And when my husband and I first married, we lived in Washington Heights. They lived right next door to us. They had moved to here. So we had, later on, we lived next door to them again, you know. And, but I didn't live there very long because we moved around a lot. When my marriage, we moved quite a bit around. So, so that's where, you know, where they all came from. But I don't really know exactly all the facts on that because as a child I was not that interested, you know, and then I know of them, but I didn't keep that, you know, that contact with them.
How did you meet your husband? How did you meet your husband?
How did I meet my husband? Okay. I was always very political. And we were all, my sisters, we were all political. And so in New York City, we were, I was in the, I was in the youth group of the American Labor Party in New York City, okay? And my husband was the adult group. And so he was, and he was sort of in charge of the office, wanted to make sure that the youth group didn't, you know, sort of mess up the plays and do things like that. That's how I met him, you know. And, well, the funny thing was I met him, and we got to talking, and, you know, he would be there and at our meetings, and he would sort of oversee us and everything. My husband was 12 years older than I was. And one day he asked me to go to the movies, and I don't know. And I had another date, but I said, I just don't understand. I really don't understand myself. But I said, I broke the date, and I went with him to the movies. And from that day on, we went out every single night. And I came home that night, that very night, the very first night I came home, and I said to my mother, that's the man I'm going to marry. My mother said, what? You know, she was very upset because here, I was a young, 18, 17, you know, and so she says, you're too young. Don't even think about it. Don't even think about it because they're the last one, and your daughter, my other daughter is supposed to get married first, you know, and all that kind of stuff. But anyhow, it worked out that way. It worked out that I married him, you know. I mean, after a period of time, I just decided that we went around together, and at one point, I decided that I didn't want to just have a boyfriend and go out, that either we were going to get married or I was just going to leave. So I made an ultimatum, and I said, either we get married within the period of about a few months, or I'm going to register. I'm going to college and somewhere in the Midwest. I already have my application in, you know, or I'm going to Brazil to visit with my uncle, you see. So I gave him those are the three things. So I think otherwise probably we never would have gotten married. My husband was not too anxious to be married. He was already 31 years old, and he was pretty well in his ways, and he wasn't that, you know, he wasn't in a big hurry. So anyhow, what happened was that got him started. Next thing I knew, he already had an apartment ready. Within 3 days, he had an apartment ready, you know, and things were going real fast, you know. And so we got married, and my mother felt, I think I was the first one that got married, and so it's ridiculous, he's the youngest, but anyway, I got married in 1950. It was November 5th, 1950. And in fact, and the crazy part was, we were so political that we got married, and that was election. So my husband had to get up in the middle, right after we got married, that night he had to get up because he was a poll watcher. He had to go. I remember he had to go, and he was a poll watcher. See, and we were very political. We were involved in all these different things. So that was the first year, and then my sisters got married after that. I think my sister Gertie got married next, and my sister Marion actually. Well, my sister Marion had some real problems there for a while. She had a baby, and then we thought that she was in college. It was a whole big mix-up, and then she married, but she was not very happily married, and then she had TB. She got TB. See, that was in the family because of my great-grandmother, that kind of thing. And she was in the hospital for about 3 years. And that time is also still they didn't have all the medicines that they have today. And my nephew was in a foster home because he couldn't, there was nobody to take care of him and everything. It was kind of a difficult situation, for a while. And then when she got out, she was married about 2-3 years, and that was not a good marriage. So she had the child with her, and she moved to California. See, she was the first one to move to California, and then my sister Gertie, they moved to California. And so we have this exodus, all this moving to California. And then my husband and I, we didn't move to California right away. We lived in Connecticut. We lived everywhere. He had different jobs. He worked at different things. He had his own business. He did this. My husband was sort of an entrepreneur. He did everything. He was always involved in different things, If one thing worked out pretty well, it got boring, then he had to look for something else, and he looked for some other thing to do. And so he would, we would be, so we traveled we went from New York City to Connecticut. And in Connecticut, he had the job. He was manager of the biggest department store in Connecticut. That was a big job. And from there, he went into all kinds of other little different things. When he, I guess I can't even remember all the things that he did. He did just so many things. And then from Connecticut, we moved to California too. And he did. Eventually, he got different jobs in California, and then he decided he's never going to work for anybody, and he started to do a lot of his own businesses. He went into real estate, and I don't know, he did just always doing something, was always involved in something. He did the 1980 census. He was supervisor of our area for the 1980 census. That was one of the things he did that. He loved that one. That was really, really, very nice for him. It was different, So, anyway, that's a so quick story of my life.
Did the background of both of you, being Jewish or having family lost in the Holocaust, were there any those things, did they contribute to your attraction toward one another in any way?
Yeah, well, it did a lot, but because of the background that he had and the education that he had at what they call the Cheder in Bialystok, and he had so he had he came from that situation, and then my situation. Now, what happened was, he was very disturbed about the Holocaust. He was terribly disturbed about the Holocaust, and I think it sort of put him away from religion completely. That's why we didn't continue to sort of educate, more. We weren't stricter with our children as far as the religion goes, because it sort of soured him. It's just like what you might say, would you have some of these people who were in concentration camp who came out who just completely didn't want to have anything to do anymore with any kind of religion. In some ways, he was like that. He just kind of felt that he called himself somebody who didn't believe in God. Something he did get to, that's right. That's what he called himself. I never said that was so with myself, because I was always much more closer to the religion as he was, But that was the impact. But at the same time, he was very close to what went on during the Holocaust, and he read everything that he could possibly get a hold of. Possibly, he watched every program or every little thing that was involved in it, and he talked a lot about it to the children. And they didn't always understand. As you know, people don't understand when you talk to people who haven't been through certain similar situations. He had a lot of experiences during his youth in Bialystok. There was real bad anti-Semitism, and I don't know if that he ever really went through a pogrom or anything like that. But there was lots of times that they had. It was great segregation. It's not like we had in Germany. We assimilated in Bialystok. There was segregation. You just never mixed with the non-Jews. There was just no mixing. You were either this, you were there, and that's all. You couldn't. I mean, there was just no. That's the way it was, And there was lots of fighting and kids being beaten up and stuff like that. If you had to be careful, they had to be, the boys and the friends were all in the school. He went to this progressive school called the Heder. Maybe I'm not pronouncing it right. Maybe you might have, because I don't even speak Yiddish, but I remember that. Yeah, and he and so he learned a lot about about literature. He was very well read. But like me, he didn't have they go through the formal educations. He went, when he was supposed to be going to school, he was sitting in the park reading Shaw and reading, so he is a self-educated man, and he did a good job, because he took some of his jobs, he had to take a test. He passed in flying colors the college equivalency test, always. So he didn't need to go to school. He did it all himself. He really did. He was very open-minded, and he learned wherever he could, and he really, tried to bring that to others too. He was very strong about his feelings, about his opinions and stuff like that. So the kids heard plenty of, about his about life and things like that, and we got a very good education. We talked a lot in the family about literature. I always laughed because I felt he was 12 years ahead of me. I haven't caught up to him yet. See, I haven't read everything that he read, because it wasn't possible for me to read it all. So I'm still catching up to some of the things that he used to talk about, some of the literature and stuff that I'm just getting now, like Sean O'Casey and stuff like that. He used to talk about that, but I didn't understand. At that point, I wasn't up to that yet. I've just reached it, at this point in my life. And he really was very, did a lot of different things, and he was very active politically, and he was also became very active in our community. We didn't want to have too many high-rise buildings, and we just felt that our neighboring cities of Pleasant Hill grew up too fast, our Concord grew up too fast, and we wanted to keep our Pleasant Hill, so that he became president of that, and he got involved in that. And that's where I got this plaque now in the City Hall of Pleasant Hill, you know, for him. I like that. And so that's, you know, so that's where he came from. In the meantime, when I, had to sort of emancipate myself anyway, because I decided I didn't want to stay home and take care of my children all the time, just like you don't either. You go out and do things, and, you know, and because what the thing was that the mother's supposed to stay home and take care, you know. But I wanted my education, so little by little, I just sort of did my education. I started out by having a little story hour for the children, for little tiny children, because there wasn't one. And I established a story hour from 2-year-olds to 6-year-olds in my area, and it's still in existence with my name and not my name. And and from there, I got involved in the schools, in the elementary school, and I opened up the school library for the children in the afternoon, and started, you know, getting involved in school library, from the story hour to the school library. Then in 1971, my family wasn't too happy about my not being home all the time. They was to argue who would do the dishes, who would do this, but I thought, well, I'd have to just do it, you know. And sometimes he didn't like it either. He said, you're doing too much, come back in, you know. Anyhow, I went on in 1971. We had a building in a building that we owned, and somebody approached me and asked me whether we would be interested in helping to start a clinic. A friend of mine who was a nurse, wanted to start a venereal disease clinic in the area, with a conjunction with the county and the community, and also the college. And so I came to the first meeting just finding what it was all about, and I ended up becoming the coordinator. So I became the coordinator of the clinic, and through all that, it started me going to, we did have a clinic. It was very successful. It's still in operation to today in Contra Costa County, and a venereal disease clinic. And through that, I started going to school. I went to junior high school, junior college. I finished junior college, and I went to San Francisco State University, and I graduated from there. Almost got my master's in public administration, but then I sort of lost my interest, and I sort of let that go, and that's where I am today. But I don't mind. I don't necessarily have to go to school. I'm doing a lot of other things. I'm involved in a lot of, I worked as an activity director in a convalescent hospital for 9 years, and I still do a lot of volunteering. I volunteer for the Adult Day Health Council, also for women with abortion groups, and you know, I'm quite active in a lot of different things, you know, here and there, and I've, since my husband died, I've sort of re-educating myself in the fact that I enjoy going to the cultural events, and I'm involved in everything in San Francisco, ACT, the opera, the Wednesday afternoon shorts and plays, and everything in my community. I go to the ballet, and so I've had one year I'm really going into it quite thick, and I don't know where I'm going to go from there. That's those are things I've been doing. I haven't been involved in anything, I would say, religious, But I did join the Jewish Community Center, and that was just this year. That was my only contact right now, in the Jewish groups. And so far, I'm just sort of eyeing that to see how that's, where that's going to go. And I'm going at the end of this month to a Sillamar with the Jewish Community Center for 3 days on a trip. So let's see how that works out. Also, I've gone with my sisters to what does it call that again? The the college for the elderly. The
Elder hostel.
huh?
Elder hostel?
Elder hostel. That's right. I just came from an elder hostel a couple of weeks ago with my sisters at Ashland. But that was the second elder hostel I've been to, and I plan sometime to do it. I have a friend who's going to one in Japan and one in another country, and I'm looking forward to maybe doing something like that in the future. But I travel a lot too. I've been to Alaska. I went to Alaska by myself. I didn't go with anyone. And I would like to go, do some more traveling. I'm going to England in August, spending two weeks with my daughter, and then 1 week I'm still trying to find out where I'm going to go. Now, I may go to Germany. I have places, speak to some of those women that were so nice. I have yet to call them, and I might go visit them. Or I may go on a tour. I have 7 days where I'm free to do what I want, and I want to have to figure that out yet, what I'm going to do,
Do you still speak German?
Huh?
Can you speak
Yes,
German?
I speak German with a big dialect. Rutesheim dialect is very funny. I mean, it's almost like a southern dialect, like we have in the United States, and so my German is not correct, I mean, but they all thought it was real cute when I was there. After a while, at first I couldn't, they would talk real fast, and I wasn't sure I could hear everything, and then after a while it sort of blended, and I sort of came back, it came back to me, and I remembered, and I got along okay. I got along all right with them. So that was very nice. It was a wonderful experience at Germany, So I may be going to Germany, or I don't know, somewhere. Almost.
Well, is there anything that you feel that you would like to talk about that you haven't talked about?
Well, the only thing that to talk about my dealings with my husband and going to Bialystok and all that. I think that takes too long. It's nothing I want to start now because it's something that would have to stop in the middle. So I don't think it would be good to start it now. To sort of, unless you want me to start with something and then stop. I don't know.
Well, we do have a few more minutes unless you wanted, did you have some questions that you...
The only question I had, when you left Germany, do you remember speaking German with your family when you lived in New York? Did you speak it?
Oh, that's a very good question. At first, I spoke German, and I did have a language difficulty. But as we were here, we came in November, and that summer, my parents got me into a camp, and it was a wonderful camp. It was called Camp Vacamus, and there was no one there that spoke German, and I had to speak English for about 10 days, or what it is, 2 weeks, or what it is. And I came home, and I never spoke German again. It just took that long a period of time. Children grab really fast, really fast. And my parents were very upset because I came home and I spoke English. And my mother kept saying, well, what's the matter with you? Why don't you speak German, And I said, I can't. I've lost it. It's just not coming out anymore. And what happened is really that all of us started speaking English. My parents also. Later, little by little, there was we rarely spoke German, except to other German people that my parents also lost. Of course, they never lost their accents, and but they really it just sort of worked itself in, because I was very negative about my feeling about Germany anyway, and I really wanted to forget it. And it wasn't until I was in college and I needed a language. Or first I was in high school. I used the German as a language because this way I didn't have to go take all the classes. I could still read German, and so that it was a lot easier for me, and I was able to get through it. And so then I took it in high school, and I took it again in college, and I started reading some books in German. I can read some books in German, and but it's a little bit difficult for me unless I do it continuously, like that.
What was the war talk during the years that you just arrived until the end of the war? What were you hearing during the war when you lived in Washington Heights?
Yes.
Do you recall that period during the war? What was the awareness here about what was going on there?
Well, I was taken in with everything American and with all the things, all the heroes that the Americans had with my heroes, and all that I certainly wouldn't call those heroes today. But at that time, I was taken in with everything. I was just in this new country, and they accepted me, and I'm just gonna go all out with everybody, so that's I remember Douglas MacArthur was my hero. You can imagine, they had these buttons and all this stuff, and I had the buttons with my, but you see, my parents, that was a difficult time for my parents, because they were in a new country, and it was just as hard for them as it was for me, so that they weren't able to educate me that much on that, because they themselves didn't know. They were just getting to try to put their feet in to see what was going on, so that I had to fend for myself, and my sisters were doing their thing. Everybody was doing their thing, so to speak, and I was just taken in and see the movies, and everybody, every Saturday, they want kids, what kids do, go to the movies, and I just followed the normal growing up process, really. And I was very lucky because I had an easier time, because I not only had my parents who were helpful, even though they had their own troubles, and my sisters, my sisters, I was the little one, and they always, take me along, and if I couldn't find something myself, I went along with them. In fact, for many years, I went out with a lot of my sister's boyfriends. She had so many boyfriends, it didn't matter when I went. My sister was really had lots and lots of boyfriends, especially during the war years. Oh my, they used to cater to me through her, I should put in a good word, and stuff like that, and they would bring me candy. And when I was in camp, they wrote to me. Some of them wrote to me and kept contact with me, and so that it was really. So I really had a lot of support, all around, and that we didn't belong to any like Jewish groups or anything like that, even during those years. But because there was so much going on with my sisters and with everybody going on, that I already had enough, I had enough thing. My sister, Marion, when she worked, she would bring in her friends from work. We had a very nice, open situation. My parents were wonderful, and you could bring home anybody. And the people bring home, everybody brought home somebody they would sleep over, this kind of thing. And we've always had somebody over. About 3 girls, there was always somebody. If it wasn't my friend, it was their friend. It was always, so it was, there were always a lot of people going through, a lot of them remember very good times when they came to visit us. They can remember. I pretty much tried to have the same kind of situations when my children were growing up, because during the 60s, there were a lot of parents who excluded their children. They didn't like their long hair, they didn't like their thing, and they just told them, get out, I want to see you, go. Yeah. The kids came to stay with us. My kids had a friend whose parents didn't let them come in or were mad at something like that, they brought them in, they came in, they slept over, they did this, and that. So we had the same thing. We always had kids coming and going, you know. We always had a lot of social thing like that. Sometimes it got to be too much almost, you know. But that was a very nice feeling. So it's not like, you know, kids who don't have a place to go or they don't want to go home to their parents or they don't feel comfortable, you know, things like, but we never had anything like that. We always had very open family relationships, you know. So so I guess I grew up pretty good. I mean, you know, during those times, of course, there was another situation that I had trouble with, and that's my hearing. You see, at first I didn't even know what the trouble was. You know, you don't realize that you're not hearing. Those things you don't it's very hard to understand that. When you see, it's quiet, and you don't see, it's different. But when you hear and you don't hear, you're not sure that's what it is. And so there's a lot, and it took me a long time to realize what my problem was. I'm even accused now. My sister accuses me of saying that I'm not even open enough to agree that my problem, that I have a very, very severe case of hearing. Now, I think it's severe, but she hasn't seen the more severes that I've seen. So I just feel that I know what level I'm at, you know, what level. And to me, it's one of the things that I have to do really is work on my hearing. And that's something that was very difficult for me in my married life and with my children, because I've always felt, that's one thing I've always felt, that I did not get support in that. That they never realized that, or they never even wanted to realize that I'm really hard of hearing. It wasn't until Judy just realized now, agreed to me, that she realizes that I have a hearing problem. Now, that took a long time. And, you know, I used to, let's say, I would sit and talk to somebody, and then they would say something to me, and I wouldn't agree. I wouldn't say I can't hear you to them. I would just come out with something, what I think that they said. And sometimes it sounded very funny. And they would laugh at me, and they say, oh, look what she's saying, you know, this kind of thing. And so I just, I realized that I had to come to terms before they can come to terms, you see. And I had to come myself to realize that I really don't hear well. And since that time, I'm doing a lot. I'm fighting the situation quite a bit, and I'm trying to bring all these things with me. I have something with me in case I want to make a phone call. I've got something to put in the phone so I could hear better, or I could, you know, I have all these other gadgets that I have with me. That if we couldn't have worked it out this way, I would have worked it out another way. So.
Did you have your hearing loss when you were a child?
Not until we came to this country. Not until we were here for about 6 months, and I was having trouble in school. I didn't hear what the teacher was saying. Luckily, my name was Bodenheimer, and they put you according to what your name is, so that I was in front. Now, if my name my name's Sabel, I would have realized it sooner. You see, I was up there all the time, you know, and that was it got every time I had some kind of a medical problem, it got worse. It was a birth or different things that got worse. Right now it's at a, you know, different, you know, plateau, but it's really something that I don't think, I think maybe now that my family is just getting to realize now, and especially for me to live alone now, it's been a real, that's been a real hard time for me, because I don't hear the doorbell, I don't hear the phone. I've had situations where somebody's come to visit me, and then they called me up and get mad at me and say, why weren't you home? And I was home. I didn't hear them. You see, So I've changed all that. I've gotten all kinds of gadgets. I walk around my house with something. Then the doorbell rings, it chimes, that it goes right near where I could hear it. I've got, when the phone rings, my lamps go on and off, you know. And, you know, I mean, I'm still, I belong to a group called Shh, Shh, which is supposed to help, which is...
Actually, what were your parents' reaction to the hearing loss? Did they simply did not acknowledge it, or did you
Yeah,
not acknowledge it?
they all, and nobody seemed to, not that they denied it, but, you know, like if I didn't hear it, like they would say, why don't you pay attention? You know, that kind of thing. Or you know, that kind of thing. But when the school called them, the school did call them, and I was tested. And I don't really know what happened at those tests, because I think that they should have pursued it more as parents. And I don't know what happened, and I don't know where it failed and who failed or what. I can't blame it on anybody. But somehow I was tested, and it proved, you know, all those school tests that they give you, I failed them all. I didn't hear them. All those tests that I'd never heard, and so they didn't do very much about it at all. And it wasn't until much later and then I had trouble all through school. You know, a lot of times I had trouble, and a lot of times even talking on the phone to people, I think I hear one thing and then hear another thing, and I myself, I see the real problem was that I was not in tune to it myself. I didn't understand it as well as I should have, and if the time that when I realized that I do have this loss and that there is something, I have to do something about it, then things have changed. And it wasn't until much later, after I was married and I was living in Long Island, which was, you know, and I had 2 children already. That's how far back it was. And then I took a test there, and they said that I've got to have some kind of a hearing aid. It's ridiculous, you know. And even then, I didn't pursue it. I let it go for a while, and I forgot about it. And then we moved to another area, you know, and it just kind of, and if, I guess maybe my husband should have said something, you know, maybe he didn't notice it, If I had somebody else who would have said to me, hey, look, you've got a hearing loss, you better do something now, you know, but nobody really said it to me. So it wasn't until much later, and then finally, when I got my first hearing aid, and I realized that I didn't hear the birds sing, and I didn't hear all this other stuff that I never even heard, that I thought I heard, you know, the things were quite different. But even then, I didn't want to openly tell people. You see, there was also a psychological thing that was behind that, because if I talked to somebody, I was afraid to say, could you speak louder, please? I don't hear well. I would try to say, like I said before, I would try to bring in the word, but I think the person said, and they would look at me and say, she's queer, she's, you know, she's not, you know, and people really thought that I was a little bit, you know, maybe, you know, like, so, finally, I really went through extensive testing, and they, in New York Medical Center, and this doctor sent me to Dr. Suey in San Francisco. He just died not too many years ago, okay, and he said, I definitely have a certain nerve, so-and-so, deadening the nerves, and at this particular time, that there was nothing that they could do medically. They could not, I mean, they couldn't operate, there was nothing they could do, and I've had to have something, you know, some other help. And not only one hearing aid, but I need to have 2 hearing aids, because one hearing aid would drive me crazy, because I started out with one hearing aid, and I would speak to somebody over here, and then I wouldn't hear what this one is saying. It was not possible. So after I got 2 hearing aids, things got much better. But there's still a lot of problems with hearing aids. Hearing aids is not the answer to everything, you know. And I'm still hoping that now there's new things coming out all the time for this. It's not quite. They still haven't really. They have helped people who are deaf, they're not here at all. But I'm right in the middle. I'm right in the middle there, and those middle of people of us, we're not. We still have to rely on the, you know, and hearing aids have not progressed to the point where all the other wonderful things have progressed. You know, all the radios and the TVs and all the other things progressed much further than the hearing aids have progressed. And so, but since I finally did join that SHH group, that has been a wonderful help for me because I've been able to find all other for things. Now, the reason that they claim, okay, now back to the reason why I have this loss. There is a tendency, most likely, in my genes, probably, because both my sisters have somewhat of a hearing loss in their later years, not when they were young children, but in their 60s now, that they feel a little bit of it now, that there is some, but the situation of what we went through, coming from Germany to here, it took me months and months, a long time to get, every time that bell rang, I was in a state of shock, and it did affect, that affected my hearing. Now, if during that period of time, if I had the right kind of help, they could have helped me at that time. I could have had acupuncture, and maybe it would have helped me then, but it wouldn't help me now, you see, because it already went in effect. And now it's 50%, at least 50% of my hearing is gone. And I don't know whether it's going to get worse or not. It's been sort of pretty even, you know. But they say that these doctors did feel that it had something to do with my experience in Germany. And you know something? I tried, the German government sent me to to a physician here in this country, but he wouldn't agree to it because I was trying to get them to send me money. I did get $1,000 from them because I was not able to continue my education because I could not continue going to school after my first grade because of what situation we had in Rutesheim, and but it didn't come through. It didn't come through. I tried to get it through because I think that they owe that to me. I think really a lot of it had to do with what went on there, and my nervous system, and my hearing, and the nerves of the And I tried lately acupuncture. It doesn't work now, but it might have worked at the time when it happened. You know, it might have worked for me then, or maybe some kind of physical, some kind of therapy at that point in my life might have helped. You know, the shock, to get out of the shock treatment, to get me back to the normal. You know, for a child, but I didn't have that chance. You know. But one other thing that I did want to say, and I hope I can say it real fast, is that people who migrate and who come to this country now have lots and lots of help. There are organizations all over the place helping them do this, helping them to a language, helping them for this, and helping them do that. But the time when we came here, there wasn't such a help. We did not have any kind of help. We came over here, and we had absolutely no help. My parents were not educated enough to understand what the needs were, but there weren't any organizations to help me become assimilated in this country, or to understand the language, or to help me physically, or to do, or to help my parents get more, thing like that. Because now there's only one group, I think, at that time that was the highest, and they had too much to do at that time, because people were coming in from Europe all the time, and they were too busy. But there really was not. They're the same. We certainly didn't get the same group, because I was involved in helping helping a group of people who come in from Russia now. All the Jews who are coming from Russia, they are getting help galore. I mean, just, you know, I'm glad they are. It's good that the people are getting help. But I'm just saying, during this period, to record that during that period, we did not have anything like that here. There was no help for the people who came right after World War II, or right, you know, just before the war too. I mean, just, you know, because I don't know if they have. I think they have more help in probably. Maybe in Israel, and then they had more that they did try to get this, you know, to get people to, because it's very difficult when you move to another country, and you really need that that little step, you know, to get that little step. And I'm glad to see, because like what we have now, the Jewish Community Center, and they're breaking their backs to do anything for the Russian Jews that are coming in. They're coming in. They come into all the groups, and they're invited specially to come to groups. They have special groups to help them. They have special groups to help them get jobs. Special groups to go out with them, and, you know, help them in their. There's all kinds of things going on, which is great. I'm telling you that we have progressed that way. That's good, you know. But we did not have it during that period.
This is a good place.
Yeah.